NFL quarterbacks' careers are frequently defined by their performance on the big stage. If a player doesn't have a Super Bowl ring, he is regarded as a step below the all-time greats. If Tom Brady, Joe Montana, and Peyton Manning didn't win championships, they probably wouldn't be remembered in the same way. However, the list of quarterbacks who've never won a Super Bowl is impressive. There are MVPs, Pro Bowlers, and All-Pros aplenty, as well as a few Hall of Famers. Here are the best quarterbacks who have never won a Super Bowl. Before we continue, kindly hit the notification button so you always know when we post new videos. Alright, without further ado, let's get started. Dan Marino. Marino is without a doubt the greatest quarterback never to win a championship. He came close early in his career, losing to the San Francisco 49ers in his second season in 1984. But Marino and the Dolphins never even got back to the big game, as he retired after the 1999 season with an 8-10 playoff record. Marino thrived in an era before the rules favored quarterbacks. He surpassed 4,000 yards passing 6 times in his career, including a then record of 5,084 yards in his 1984 MVP season. Marino's 1984 season is the only one that occurred in the 20th century among the top 25 passing yardage seasons in NFL history. Winning just one Super Bowl would have vaulted Marino into the company of Montana, Manning, and John Elway, just below Brady. Fran Tarkenton. Tarkenton was a gunslinger quarterback before the passing game took over the league. When he retired in 1978, he held several major passing records, yards, touchdowns, and interceptions. The records have fallen, but Tarkenton's influence should not be overlooked. The first 6 seasons for the 1961 third-round pick with the Vikings were abysmal, with Minnesota going 27, 46, and 4. Tarkenton returned to the Vikings and cemented his legacy after making 4 Pro Bowls in 5 seasons with the Giants. Tarkenton won an MVP, 3 Pro Bowls, and 3 NFC championships in his final 7 seasons, before losing in the Super Bowl each time. The Purple People Eaters defense gets all of the attention, but Tarkenton played a significant role in their success. Warren Moon. Warren Moon's career stats include 49,325 passing yards, 291 passing touchdowns, 9 Pro Bowl appearances, 1990 second-team All-Pro, 1990 NFL Offensive Player of the Year, and induction into the Pro Football Hall of Fame 2006 class. First ballot, first African-American QB inducted, though we should point out he was the 1990 NFL Offensive Player of the Year, but only a second-team All-Pro, which means that there was a quarterback who played worse than him, but made first-team All-Pro. Because he was surrounded by dynasties, Moon's greatness was buried during the 1980s and 1990s. The majority of AFC titles were won by John Elway and Jim Kelly, while the majority of Super Bowls were won by the Dallas Cowboys, Washington Football Team, then the Redskins, now the Commanders, New York Giants, and San Francisco 49ers. Moon led the Houston Oilers to the playoffs 7 years in a row, from 1987 to 1993, but he only had a 3-6 record. He missed 1 game due to injury. With Moon, the Oilers never made it to the conference championship game. Moon was electrifying on the field. He threw for nearly 50,000 yards and twice led the league in passing yards. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that Moon won 5 consecutive Grey Cups, Canadian Football League championships, before entering the NFL from 1978 to 1982. He didn't play an NFL snap until he was 28 years old and retired in 2001 at the ripe old age of 44. Dan Fouts. We've grown so accustomed to hearing Fouts call games on TV that many younger fans may be unaware of how good of a quarterback he was. Fouts played 15 seasons in the NFL, all with the Chargers, and his passing stats were impressive. Fouts, like Tarkenton, played in an era when passing was not the primary focus of most offenses. Despite this, he led the NFL in passing yards per game 6 times during his career. The knock on Fouts is that his team was never particularly successful. During Fouts' career, the then San Diego Chargers only made the playoffs 4 times, never making it past the AFC Championship game. Fouts made the AFC Championship games in 1980 and 1981, but his teams were defeated by the Raiders and Bengals respectively. Jim Kelly. The Buffalo Bills of the 1990s are one of the greatest what-ifs in NFL history. From 1990 to 1993, Kelly led the Bills to 4 consecutive Super Bowl appearances. But if you've been paying attention so far, you know what happens next. Buffalo lost 4 consecutive Super Bowls. the first by 1 point on a missed 47-yard field goal as time expired, and the last 3 by double digits. Kelly would almost certainly be considered one of the game's all-time greats if he'd won any of those titles. He didn't have the numbers of his peers, but he was a reliable, solid player for many years. He finished his career with 35,467 passing yards, 237 touchdowns, 5 Pro Bowls, and a trip to the Hall of Fame. Kelly spent 11 seasons in the NFL, all with the Buffalo Bills. Randall Cunningham. If you go to an Eagles game these days, you're still going to see a few jerseys with Cunningham's name on the back. He was a member of the Philadelphia Eagles from 1985 to 1995, but his career was derailed by a torn ACL. Cunningham was one of the league's first great dual-threat quarterbacks, and his numbers after the injury demonstrated that he had lost a step. After retiring for the 1996 season, he returned to the Vikings in 1997 and had a career year with Randy Moss and Chris Carter in 1998. The 15-1 Vikings lost the NFC Championship game after their previously perfect kicker Gary Anderson missed a game-winning field goal. That season will be remembered as Cunningham's greatest squandered opportunity. Phil Rivers. Rivers' passing numbers outperform everyone else on this list, but that will be true of every younger player. He finished his career with 63,440 yards, 421 touchdowns, and 8 Pro Bowl selections. He was never the league's best quarterback during his era, but he was almost always a top 10 quarterback, sometimes even a top 5. Rivers' durability was perhaps his best quality. This guy could take a beating. He started 240 consecutive games from 2006 until his retirement in 2020. Throughout Rivers' career, the Chargers had a lot of talent, but they couldn't beat Brady's Patriots, Manning's Colts, or Roethlisberger's Steelers. In 2007, the Chargers went to Foxborough and were defeated 16-0 by the Patriots, thanks in part to Rivers' torn ACL. He'll be remembered as one of the toughest players of his generation, but a notch below the all-time greats. Michael Vick. Vick will be remembered as the greatest athlete in his position in NFL history. Vick was a star for the Atlanta Falcons before his federal charges and subsequent jail time. Over his first 6 seasons, the Madden 04 cover athlete rushed for 3,859 yards, 7.3 yards per rush, and 21 touchdowns. In the open field, he was unstoppable, and he had a cannon for an arm. Vick's big problem? He just didn't win all that much. In 13 seasons, he only appeared in 5 playoff games, winning 2 of them. His best chance at a Super Bowl came in 2004 when the Falcons were defeated in the NFC Championship game by the Eagles. We'll always wonder how far Vick's career could have gone if he hadn't made self-inflicted mistakes. He did come back and play for the Eagles after getting out of prison, initially looking like he hadn't lost a step, but he only lasted a few years before fading into irrelevance and finally retiring. Steve McNair. Steve McNair was inches away from forcing overtime against the Rams in Super Bowl 34 when Kevin Dyson was tackled at the goal line as time expired. Despite some excellent chances, the Titans never returned to that level with McNair. McNair was 5-5 in 10 playoff games, with 6 touchdowns and 11 interceptions. McNair, like Rivers, was a victim of being in a conference full of all-time greats. His playoff losses came to the Rams in 1999, that was the Super Bowl, the Ravens in 2000, the Patriots in 2003, the Colts in 2006, and the Raiders in 2002. All 5 of those teams advanced to the Super Bowl, with the first 4 winning. McNair finished his career with 31,304 passing yards, 174 passing touchdowns, 37 rushing touchdowns, and 3 Pro Bowl selections. He also won the MVP in 2003. Matt Ryan. Ryan came the closest to winning a Super Bowl of any player on this list, and let's be honest, he really should have. The Falcons led 28-3 in the third quarter of Super Bowl 51, hoping to cap off an incredible season. But it wasn't meant to be. The Falcons fell apart in the fourth quarter, blowing their 25-point lead and handing Tom Brady his 5th Super Bowl ring. Ryan was never able to replicate his 2016 season, in which he was named league MVP after throwing for 38 touchdowns and nearly 5,000 yards, but he's had a very successful career since being drafted 3rd overall in 2008. He's already surpassed many Hall of Famers in passing yards and touchdowns. A Super Bowl in his final season would be the icing on the cake. Cam Newton. Cam Newton is one of the most dynamic rushing quarterbacks in history, rivaling Michael Vick. His 70 career rushing touchdowns are 27 more than the second-place Steve Young. The Super Cam, as they called him, was a much more consistent passer than Vick, topping 3,100 yards in 8 seasons, something Vick did only once. During his MVP season in 2015, Newton was at the peak of his abilities. Unfortunately, He ran into a brick wall Broncos defense in the Super Bowl, and it was all downhill from there. After a brief stint with the Patriots, Newton is back on the Panthers and he's looking like a shell of himself. Boomer Esiason. Boomer Esiason is another quarterback-turned-broadcaster who came close to winning a Super Bowl. The Bengals made the Super Bowl in 1988, but were beaten by the San Francisco 49ers. Cincy's 4-point defeat was the closest any team came to defeating Joe Montana in the championship game, as a 14-3 San Francisco run in the fourth quarter secured the 20-16 victory. Esiason, one of only 3 left-handed quarterbacks to play in a Super Bowl, began his career in Cincinnati before being traded to the Jets in 1993. He was named to the Pro Bowl in his first year in New York, but his final 4 seasons, 2 with the Jets, 1 with the Cardinals, and 1 back with the Bengals, were largely disappointing. That's all for today, folks. So what'd you think of our list? Did we miss anybody? Let us know in the comments, and make sure to hit the like button and notification bell and subscribe to our channel to get access to more interesting videos from us. Until next time.